The story begins with rainy weather and shows a middle-aged woman named Choi Myung-soo, we'll call her the mother, as she is about to cross the road when she is suddenly approached by a motorbike rider who tries to snatch her bag. In that situation, the mother was still holding onto her bag, causing her body to be dragged along the road, until finally the motorbike slipped and made them fall. The man then approached the mother and was still trying to take her bag. The mother still insisted on not wanting to let go of the bag, until finally the man took out a knife and stabbed the mother in the stomach. Across the road, the man on the phone, named Seo Jin-hong, looked shocked after seeing the middle-aged woman who had been snatched and stabbed. It was his mother. He immediately rushed to take the mother to the hospital. But unfortunately, the mother couldn't be saved. 7 years after that incident, Jin-hong is now a prosecutor who is known to be sadistic. He does not hesitate to demand the harshest punishment for all the perpetrators of the crimes he handles, especially in cases involving murder and rape. That day, Jin-hong received news from her older sister that her mother had returned and was now at her house. In disbelief, Jin-hong immediately went home and saw her mother's shoes at the front door of the house. What made no sense happened to him. He saw his mother really come back and was sitting in the living room with her older sister. Her mother was still wearing the same clothes as the day she died. Not long afterward, other relatives came to see that strangeness. On the other side, Jin-hong still couldn't believe what he had seen. He told his older brother that their mother had died. However, his older sister ignored all of that and thought that this was a miracle from God. She even recorded the incident to address to her husband. But suddenly the mother, who was seen cooking in the kitchen, attacked Jin-hong with a knife. The situation turned chaotic. All the relatives tried to stop the mother, until finally Jin-hong called her mother and made the mother calm down and become unconscious. Long story short, this strange thing then attracted the attention of several parties, including an agent of the Korean National Intelligence Agency named Yong-tae. This case apparently is not the first time. The phenomenon of dead people being able to come back from death is called RV, which means resurrected victim. The reason they rose up was to be able to take revenge on their murderer. This happened because their murderer had not been caught or had not received the appropriate punishment. If he had finished avenging his revenge, the bodies of the RVs will disappear and burn to the ground. With this incident, finally the mother's murder case was reopened. Jin-hong also used this opportunity to find out who the real killer of her mother was. Because indeed, all this time she also felt that there was something strange about the case of her mother's death. And from all his investigations, he suspected that the perpetrator who was arrested 7 years ago was not the real murderer. At that time his co-worker said that there was a telephone call from a strange person who said that he knew the mother well and there was something he wanted to convey to Jin-hong. On the other hand, a secret agent named Seo was also assigned to investigate the rise of his mother and Jin-hong. In this investigation they found out that Jin-hong was the only recipient of his mother's insurance of 500 million won. At that time, Sergeant Sok-tao assumed that his mother's death must have something to do with Jin-hong, and it could be that Jin-hong was the murderer. The next day, Jin-hong went back to meet Yong-tae and saw his mother's body, which was being monitored by the Korean Intelligence Agency. At that time Yong-tae said that they were still covering up the mother's appearance from the public to protect Jin-hong, because according to him the resurrected RV is never wrong about the target of his revenge. Jin-hong also said that he is sure that his mother's killer is still alive and is determined to find that person. In another story, Soo-yeon and her colleagues went to Jin-hong's house. There they met her older sister and asked about the recording that had been taken when her mother, who had been dead for a long time, was able to return home, but her older sister answered that the recording had been taken by intelligence. Long story short, Jin-hong and his colleagues seemed to already know that the owner of the motorbike where his mother was killed was a Chinese illegal immigrant named Lee Sin-kai. Finally he met a Chinese informant and asked about the whereabouts of someone named Lee Sin-kai. From the information they got, Lee Sin-kai is suspected to be the person who robbed the bag and killed his mother. They then went to his apartment disguised as delivery couriers. After the fight, Lee Grass Jelly, who thought they were the police, immediately ran away with the red jumpsuit he was wearing. While Jin-hong was chasing him, he saw a girl in a red shirt looking at him from a distance, and suddenly, snip it. Luckily, Lee Grasshopper's actions were stopped by the police and managed to arrest him. Long story short, from the results of the investigation, Lee Sin-ko's DNA turned out to match the DNA found from the mother's nails during that incident, and strengthened Jin Hong's suspicion that the perpetrator who was arrested by the police 7 years ago was not the real killer. On the other hand, Yongtae was seen waiting for an American agent and 2 priests who came to do research on the resurrection of someone from the dead called RV. In the meeting, the American agent said that RVs always appear when it rains, and the revenge of the RVs will only occur around the place where they were killed. And this mother's case is the first case where the RV can return inside living conditions after failing to take revenge. They then asked, why did the mother attack Jin Hong, and was it true that her son was the one who killed her? And the mother answered that Jin Hong was not the perpetrator, but her son was the one who caused her death. On the other hand, Jin Hong, who was still angry, broke into the police station to meet Lee Grassenkai, who was being interrogated. At that time he asked what he was talking about. What actually happened on the day his mother was killed, because indeed, Jin Hong suspects that there were more than 2 perpetrators that day. With his red shirt, Lee Sin-kai also said, after stabbing him and trying to run away, he saw someone else, picked up the knife that fell, then approached the mother and stabbed her many times until the mother died. Hearing that, Jin Hong remembered the statement from a witness who was at the scene of the incident, and the witness said that after killing the mother the person was able to emit fire from his body, and suddenly Yongtae and other intelligence parties came to bring the grass jelly. He said that the Korean intelligence agency would deport Lee Sin-kai back to China to carry out the death penalty there. But apparently, they took Lee Sin-kai to their base to meet his mother, and suddenly the mother said Hanakama, which means revenge, and turned Lee Sin-ko's head 180 degrees until he died. With that incident, Yongtae thought that his mother's revenge was over, and they quickly threw the slippery body into the Han River. In another story, Suyeon discovered the fact that Jin Hong was not the only person who received insurance from her mother, but there was another person who received insurance named Myung Hensuk. During her investigation, My Hensuk was the son of a hit-and-run victim 9 years ago. In that incident, his 9-year-old sister, Myung Genji, and his father, Myung Ginkal, were killed, and the location of the incident was not far from the house where the Jin Hong family used to live. At the same time, Yongtae also admitted that he had faked the DNA of the perpetrator of his mother's murder 7 years ago. All of this was done because his mother's killer was actually RV, who was none other than the victim of a hit-and-run 2 years before his mother's death, who turned out to be Myung Ginkal. He returned as RV and killed the mother because he was suspected of being the cause of her death. Korean intelligence closed the meeting because they didn't want to cause panic among the Korean people. Hearing that, Jin Hong became even more confused. What really happened to the mother? Not long after, he got a call from his co-worker who told him that the strange person who had called him at that time was named Park Yohan. Heard that, Jin Hong then went to see Mr. Yohan, who turned out to be a former police officer who used to work at the regional police station where he used to live. But when they got there, Suyeon and her colleagues turned out to have been there first, and tragically, Park Yohan had hanged himself. In his suicide note, Park Yohan told what happened 9 years ago. That night there was a girl named Myeonji called the police because her father was drunk. But Yohan didn't take Myeonji away, because he was afraid that his father would be aware that he would sue him for bringing Myeonji without permission. Not long after that, Yohan, who was already at the police station, was visited by his mother. With worry, the mother said that Jin Hong was still in a bad condition, got drunk and stole a cabbage truck. He also gave the amount. Park Yohan gave a lot of money to cover up the truck theft case. But unfortunately, the next day he found Myeonji, who had been hit and killed by a lot of scattered cabbage. In the letter, Park Yohan also said that he had been covering up the case and stopped being a police officer since the incident, until finally Park Yohan decided to commit suicide because of his guilt, because he often saw Myeonji wherever he was. Shoyun also asked Jin Hong to immediately surrender because he was the cause of all this incident. But Jin Hong didn't remember at all what happened that day. Jin Hong then tried to remember by coming to the bar where he was drinking. used to celebrate graduation with his friends. And suddenly there he saw Myeonji, who was riding a bus going to the area where Jinhong used to live. Out of curiosity, Jinhong followed him. Jinhong asked the bus driver to stop, but it turned out that the bus brakes suddenly failed, which caused a series of accidents. In another story, Yongtae and the others were seen taking the mother to a place far from the crowds. At that time, Yongtae thought that the mother's revenge had been completed and would soon disappear, but suddenly, at the same time, after the accident, Jinhong was still trying to catch the bus that Myeonji was riding in with a parked pickup car. And that's when he started to remember what happened that night. Jinhong celebrated graduation day with his friends. His friend at the bar. In his drunken state he decided to go home alone. At that moment he saw a truck carrying cabbage parked and remembered. Seeing the struggle of the mother who was selling on the side of the road, officers approached her because she was prohibited from selling in that place. But the mother remained adamant and started arguing with the owner of the place, which ultimately attracted the attention of many people around her. Jinhong, who apparently saw this from a distance, pretended not to know and left his mother. After remembering that, Jinhong felt guilty towards his mother, suddenly got into the truck and, driving drunk, while trying to avoid other cars he was without, accidentally hit Myeonji, but he didn't realize it. When he got home, the mother panicked because she saw that Jinhong had stolen the car, immediately took the car to the police station, but in the middle of the road, she saw Myeonji lying on the side of the road. When he approached to help her, suddenly Myeonji's father, Myeonghunkel, comes. The mother, who panicked because she knew that Myeonji was dead, tried to run away, but Myeonghunkel chased her, which ended up being the mother's motorbike, until Myeonghunkel lost control and hit a wall and died instantly. The fact is, all the causes of the tragic incident that night started with Seo Jinhong, who stole a truck and drove it while drunk. And it turns out that the mother was willing to sacrifice all of this and cover up this tragic incident just to save her son Seo Jinhong's future. Feeling guilty, the mother listed Myeonghunkel's wife as one of the heirs to her insurance besides Jinhong. Park Yo-han, who is a police officer in the area, was accidentally dragged into their problem because he didn't know that the truck stolen by Seo Jinhong had caused a father and his daughter to die. The mother also confirmed that Jinhong didn't remember anything about the tragic incident that night and hiding it. After remembering all that, suddenly his car hit the road divider and rolled over. In that situation he saw Myeonji approaching him and asked, "Does Jinhong remember him? And why does Jinhong pretend not to know him?" Myeonji then lights a match and invites Jinhong to go to heaven with him. However, the mother suddenly came. She knelt down to apologize to Myeonji. What can be concluded is that the mother's arrival as an RV was to save Jinhong from the revenge of Myeonji, who rose from his death. That's why the mother's body didn't disappear after killing the perpetrator who had robbed and stabbed her. It turns out that the mother's love was not only while she was alive, even after she died. She was still willing to make sacrifices to save her son. Jinhong, who had realized all his mistakes, said to Myeonji that he would accept all this punishment. Then he stood in the middle of the road at the same time as the truck that was about to hit him. But the mother still insisted on asking Myeonji to forgive Jinhong. Sparks from Myeonji's body caught the oil spill and caused an explosion, and that allowed the truck to avoid Jinhong. The body of the mother who was hugging Myeonji now looks like it has been burned by fire and disappeared along with Myeonji, which indicates that Myeonji has forgiven Jinhong, and the mother's task of saving her son is over. A few days later, Jinhong decided to turn himself in for the incident that killed Myeonji 9 years ago. During the trial, he expressed his apologies to all parties who had been harmed by the incident that night. He also apologized to his mother and regretted what he had done so far, because he often ignored his mother even though he had seen her. If only he had greeted his mother first, perhaps she would still be alive now.